Hi everybody, I'm here on the sofa today with Elaine Short. Elaine is UX writer at Dreams in Stockholm, and I thought it'd be great to hear from her about what's going on. Say hi, Elaine.
Hello, it's good to be here. I feel like I'm like on a talk show. Like, it's so good to be here. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I can't pass you a glass of wine across the little table, but that would be great. Maybe we'll do that after lockdown. We get a talk show going.
I'm hoping to eventually travel to London, Spain, home in the US, whatever, when this is all over. So,
an around the world trip planned when you can get out again. So I'm really curious actually about the UX writing community in Stockholm. I'd love to hear a bit more about whether there is a community over there and whether, you know, UX writing is a thing in Sweden.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a community. I wouldn't say that I'm like it probably in the past like 6 months or so as involved in like in-person stuff, you know, meetups and whatever. I've been a part of some of those and they were really fun. The coolest thing about sort of getting together with people in Stockholm about UX writing is we do get UX writers, but then you also meet like game, like visual designers who are just interested, and, you know, researchers and people from like different corners of our industry who just like are like, oh, this seems really interesting, could be useful, I want to learn more. And so that's a really good energy to have around, especially because it's not a massive community as I've seen in person, although it's very very active online, I think. And also in the past, like probably in the past the past 6 months, I've seen so many UX writer job openings or people who were some other type of writer changing their job title to UX writer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is really cool. And these are big companies like in Stockholm, Kry, which is, I did not pronounce well, I'm sure, but it's spelled Kry. It's like a telemedical service or you know, app medical service. And Klarna, like startups, or even like the startup I work at, like it's so weird to be on the ground floor-ish of a fintech startup, but be doing sort of this similar kind of job I did to when I was at Spotify.
So you were part of the team that sort of, I guess, established UX writing at Spotify, weren't you?
I was.
That's quite exciting. That's a pretty good thing to have on the CV, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks really cool, but you know, as with every, I mean, all of my UX writer, all of the jobs I've had as a UX writer have been either being the first or being a part of the core team that's starting the first. And I was, I think, the fourth or fifth hire. I was the third non-manager. I was the third independent contributor on site in Stockholm. And yeah, like doing that job anywhere, it doesn't matter if it's like glamorous and Spotify and this cool big tech company, or, you know, a small startup, like you'll have to like answer questions that are like, but we don't have any words in the app. Like, where's the copy? And stuff like that. So it always seems really cool and exciting from afar, but you still have to do that. I think it's Clay Delk who wrote that article like 5 years ago about like doing the work. You still have to do the like boring grind of mowing the lawn, is how he puts it.
It's still an uphill struggle wherever you are, isn't it?
Can you say that again?
It's still an uphill struggle wherever you are.
yeah, that's just like where we are in the field. I mean, I'm very, very happy with all the past jobs I've had in this part of my career, like in UX,
Mm.
even more so at my current job at a small startup. But yeah, there's always that work because you're trying to establish something new, and we're also constantly evolving it.
Mm.
So yeah, it's always a grass is always greener on the other side thing. But I don't know how I got on this when we were talking about the community here, but uh, and it does seem to be blowing up. And I love beyond like the Stockholm people who I know some of who are lovely, and I wish I knew more. But also like it's been really cool to connect with people across Europe too, which is not something I anticipated when I moved here. But now I know like writers in Paris and in London and Barcelona, and it's like a weird, wonderful gift because I don't think Americans really, people in the Valley or New York really get that kind of cross-cultural UX writing community.
No, and I guess the UX writing community seems to be huge in the States, and it seems to be sort of a lot more advanced than it is in Europe. Would you agree with that?
No,
No?
I mean, I think it's bigger. It's a title and a role that has been embraced more comprehensively and quickly and at a larger scale in the US.
Mhm.
But, for one, like, uh, Silicon Valley is driving a lot of our uh, industry trends. So
Yeah.
too surprised by that. But um, two, I hear that a lot is like this idea that they've got it figured out in the US.
Mm.
And I think they've got some things figured out and they're more advanced, excuse me, in the US in like how they build teams and ratios, designer to writer, that kind of thing. But no one over there knows where we are in our field past what's been written and published.
Mm.
And we are up to date on that. So yeah, I still think we're like, they can't know what, they can't be more advanced because we're still like building the thing.
Mm. We're all making it up as we go along, aren't we? And we're all just learning from each other. And I think that's what's so awesome about the European community. I
Yeah.
think is so supportive. I spoke to Mario a couple of weeks ago, and he's building a community in Barcelona, and we have content design meetups in London. There's content design meetups in pretty much every city now that are happening, and
Yeah.
that didn't happen a couple of years ago. Those things didn't exist. So, and also I think in places like Stockholm where you are, there's a growing number of tech companies. So
Yes.
it's going to become even bigger in the next year or two.
Yeah, I think so. And I will say that there is sort of an elephant in the room when you go into a tech company in a country that in a country whose language is not English. Uh,
Mm.
Obviously, like Sweden is an extremely proficient country in English, but their first language is Swedish. Everything's in Swedish, like that is their legal language, I guess. And there is a bit of there is some like issues that you have to be aware of and think about, and different resources at your disposal when
Mm.
you are doing the UX writing in English first, but you have to very quickly also get it out in Swedish. And maybe it's only going to be for a Swedish audience and not your, multiple markets.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just another really, really interesting dynamic of doing UX writing in Europe because to the idea that you were talking about, like America, they've got it figured out, or the US, they've got it figured out a little bit more than we do. People always ask me like, why is UX writing in English only? Like, why are job descriptions for native English speaking only, which is something that I disagree with. But I literally just put together a what is UX writing presentation at Dreams, uh, deck, and presented it to many people in my company a week or two ago. And I had a whole slide about how like American English is not better, because there is this assumption that it's like, oh, Silicon Valley, UX writing came from the US. I don't have no idea if that's true. I mean, it does seem more prevalent there. So like, why are you forcing us to do our writing in English? And you have to be humble, and you also have to not humble, but you have to have like some humility about the fact that a lot of products that seem very important in the world, at least to maybe Europe and to the Western world, are coming from the US. And there's really like, there's maybe the sense that like an American or UK is better or whatever. And all of that is rubbish, and it's so stupid. And it's just because of how the market has developed. And I tell the people that I work with, like, if I were Spanish, and you'd let me, we'd do UX writing in Spanish. If I was Swedish, and you had hired me, we'd be doing our UX writing in Swedish. And then the point is that UX writing is a ultimately translatable and transcreatable product. It's not deliverable. It's not great English. That's not like the precedent.
No. I think that's kind of crazy, isn't it? Because, on some products, they are globally, when I was at Delivery, that was globally translated for every market. So to think that you can only do it in one language just seems kind of arrogant, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's arrogant, and you also have to like, you better explain it when you're American in a Swedish company. Make sure people know that you don't believe that like English is better or something. So yeah.
And with obviously a lot of your colleagues, I assume that you have a lot of Swedish colleagues. So do you ever find that there's a language barrier or kind of communication differences when you're collaborating?
Not when we're collaborating that I can think of, to be honest. They might feel differently. I am the type of person who, even though my job is to write in a very succinct, clear, concise, logical, methodical way, when I talk, I really go down different rabbit holes. So they might feel differently, but yeah, those things, they happen sort of in a more quirky, sitcom, charming way in day-to-day.
How have you found remote collaboration?
Yeah, it's been fine. I mean, Stockholm is a small city, actually, so and the restrictions are very different here from the rest of the world, strangely. So we have been, finding ways to, okay, what neighborhood do you live in? Okay, so and so lives there. You guys can go on a socially distant walk.
Oh wow! Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah. It's been really good for people like me, like single people who live alone, because I might lose my mind. But the work itself has been good. Today we just finished, like, it feels like a week of a sprint, but it was just the second day, because it's remote. And we've got a design intern running it, and she's doing like a beautiful job. She's like a Miro ninja, and it can be like tiring and taxing. And that's when I'm like, I'm gonna turn off my camera, or just not say that and turn off my camera, because like I reserve the right to sort of you know, as long as I'm listening and engaged, like I don't need to do this like all day. I
Yeah.
can't. So
It's
it's been
intense,
fun.
isn't it? It's really intense.
It's intense. It's very tiring.
Mm.
Very
What
tiring.
what do you think your top tips are for people um, doing sort of, collaborative ideation and things? And, if you're using something like Miro, or even Figma remotely,
Mhm.
yeah, what do you find is helpful to remember? Because I always find it's helpful to remember not everyone's working necessarily on the same time scale. Like I might have 2 hours at my desk and then a 15-minute break, but someone else might be doing like half an hour on, half an hour off. So, have you got those kind of tips that you found are helpful to remember?
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like you do because that was very thoughtful. I hadn't thought of that. I think like yeah, just a couple like at the beginning of quarantine, there were some days where I was like, I'm not turning on my camera. I just don't want. I don't know why. It just didn't feel. It felt like I was being monitored or something, or I was checking in to show that I was present, and that is not the sense of who we are as a company. Nor do my teammates or my manager, my boss, need to see like that I'm like here with my hand up. So like early on, we as a company addressed it, and they said like you can like you know you can not show yourself on a call. If you show your face, like studies show that like that type of face-to-face communication can increase trust. But I ever since have we're a small company, and I do already feel like I have the trust of my coworkers. So I've said even after getting told to turn it on, like I reserve the right not to, and
Yeah.
I think it's like something we have to be aware of when we. And of course, they were kind of chiding me, not being that serious, but I think that is something we have to remember. Like, yes, there will be children in the room. There will be like maybe a sambo or a partner or husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend sitting next to you clacking very loudly on their ergonomic keyboard. There will be all these instances that we already know, but there's also like the weird idea that just showing up to work means that you like are ticking off a box, and we don't operate that way. And I'm learning that that's how I prefer to not sort of be uh, what's the word, sort of like counted for, but for my work to do that for me. So I think thinking about work that way, especially if you're in management, like a really good example of that is at my when I was at Spotify, I would have like one-on-ones with my manager, and at a certain point, it was like we had decided to have them on walks,
Mm.
and that was just so that was some like a really nice feeling of freedom where it wasn't about us like being in front of a whiteboard and like debating like the term like fee over subscription. It was about like uh just being there together and having whatever conversation we're going to have, and having the freedom to like knock off and go out to the street and let our conversation wander. So the more trust you can give to people, the more leeway that's going to get paid back to you, um, in sort of giving them space. Like, um, uh, yeah, I mean, that was quite like I said, I do go off in rabbit holes, down rabbit holes.
I think that's a good tip though, because I think I mean, I don't know about you, but I always naturally feel that if I'm working from home, which, we are all the time now, I feel like if I'm not at my screen, I'm not working, but actually I am, because I might be doing the washing up or baking, but I'm still having ideas and writing things down and thinking, oh, that would be good. But there's that natural tendency to feel like, oh, I have to be at my screen. And only this morning actually I was on a meeting, like a 2.5 hour um sort of webinar, and it was actually quite nice to be able to not have to have my camera on. I was still listening, but I could be doing other things. And I think we're so like often told that, have your camera on because it shows you're present and people can connect with you, but you can't do that all day every day. It's just exhausting.
It's exhausting because that's not how we interface in real life.
Mm.
Like, I was in a meeting with my boss and I was like, oh, like, Eric, I really want to make coffee. Can I? He's like, yeah. How many meetings have we like had together that didn't start for the first 15 minutes in the room because you and I go and get fika like in the kitchen? That's fine.
Yeah.
And it all kind of, all of that comes back around to like giving yourself the benefit of the doubt and giving your coworkers the benefit of the doubt, which is something that's like my core co-working belief. Outside, like before the pandemic, which is always assume that your peers have done the best that they can with the resources that they have.
Yeah.
So it's never about like blame or like you're not advanced enough, or I can't imagine being an adult and saying like your skills just aren't up to snuff to someone, but because Lord knows, like I feel that way every day, but there's that core value there amongst all of that, and we have to do that for ourselves too. I've gotten rid of that shame, that guilt, when I am like I'm sauteing some vegetables, but I'm listening to the Products Weekly, and it doesn't like you can see where my kitchen is, like from my desk. It's not like I'm losing the content. So yeah, I
Well, that's a good tip.
it was all the circle. Yeah,
that's something I need to teach myself, actually, to like not feel bad about doing stuff while I'm working.
work hard anyway. Like,
yeah, need a break, don't we, sometimes? What you're a very creative person, I've heard. How have you been keeping creative? I've heard you like to draw cartoons.
I love how you say you've hered.
I've heard. I think you told me.
So it's actually been really hard to draw lately. But yeah, I do like to draw cartoons. I've been doing it for like 10 years. It's just a very lightweight narrative tool. And I used to really like art when I was a kid, and I like after 8th grade completely stopped developing my skills. So if you look at my comics, you can see that it looks like an 8th grader like drew the images, but like a professional content strategist thought out the narrative and the punchline, hopefully. But it's been hard to do lately because everything's stressful, and life is just a bit lonelier here, and I can't see my family, and that's its own issue. So I like everyone else was really interested in flexing my creative or productivity muscles when this all started. And I'm sure I have a list somewhere of all the things I was going to learn to do that I haven't. Like this time I'll learn the guitar. Like absolutely not. So what I've been doing actually is really, really small, like micro sort of creative flexing. I started doing the New York Times crossword, and it's really, really hard. It's like a famous crossword, and I don't know if you're familiar with it being from the UK, but they have an app for it. And so I started doing that, and I realized like, okay, I have to start with like the mini level. Building up this like, it's interesting, like I can fill these sort of weird empty moments like 5 minutes before a meeting, or if I wake up and I'm not quite ready to get up. There's something extremely satisfying about something so small that you're doing that feels productive. So do something if you can, but you don't have to paint the next Mona Lisa. You can just do a crossword.
I think, I haven't been doing anything quite as intellectual as a crossword, but I've been like, I found this app for my local library, which I can't go to the library obviously, but you can borrow magazines on the app. So
Nice.
it's like I can just download magazines and read them on my phone. Not quite as
No, but
not
that's
going to
not.
improve my brain power, but
Yeah, but it's not about. Neither do the like. You're like crosswords are intellectual. You should see the crosswords. Like, you know, because I've not yet graduated to the full crossword. I'm doing the like 20 word or 20 word crossword. But anything that sort of gives you engagement that's separate from work. I
yeah,
think that's all we want.
definitely. Although I really would love a content design themed cartoon book. I really think you should put that on your radar. Everybody will be loving that if you could illustrate a book about content design.
There are books that are comics about design for sure, and Jonathan Coleman is like a slot machine for those. If you ask, he'll just start sending you links, which is great. And so right now it's on my Kindle, but I can't remember the name, and I can message these to you later. But there are actually a couple books, and the amazing thing about what we do that I think people don't quite get is that there are so many forms of what we do out in the world that people are more familiar with. So like telling jokes, being a comedian, that is a form of like very structured, like word choice specific,
Mm.
tone specific narratives. Same with comics. I mean, they go hand in hand for sure. And songs and whatever. So yeah, if you want to, yeah, maybe I should do one. But now I'm thinking like maybe I'll start a content strategy band. And I keep telling myself I will. I'll think about it. That's what I'll tell you. I'll think about it.
Okay, that sounds like a good deal. Well, it's been really lovely talking to you today,
Yeah,
Elaine. I could talk to you for hours. Maybe we do need to do a face-to-face meetup when we're all allowed back out again, and we'll do a yeah. I could be the Graham Norton show. Have you ever watched that?
Grant,
It's,
the
Graham
Grant
Norton. He
yes.
does a chat show in the UK, but he gets to drink wine the whole way through, so it's my kind of chat show. Yeah, I'll add that to my to-do list.
So prim and proper, but your TV is wild, man. I'd love that, or even just online for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, virtual wine night.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. We
Yeah,
should do that. Or a virtual content meetup where we do a quiz about content design. No, that's maybe too worky. Let's make it non-work. But we'll certainly do something.
cool.
It's
Sounds
been
good.
lovely to speak to you.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, Elaine. Bye.